Let's cut to the chase. It's a challenging market right now in the GTA for sellers. While sales volume are, thankfully, up since June, prices continue to drop year over year by single digit percentage. As a seller, you need to stack the odds in your favor in how you market your house. I've listed dozens of homes over the last decade in the GTA and beyond, and during a challenging market, here's my advice on what to do. First strategy. Make it easy for buyer agents to book your property. Ideally, when an agent goes to your listing and books it online, it should be auto-confirm. That's really only practical if no one is living at your property during showings, whether that's you and your family or maybe your tenants. Ideally, no one should be there. If it's your primary residence, move out if you can during the showings. If you're renting your property, ideally, arrange to have your tenants end their lease and move out before you list. Be sure to do this completely legally and be highly respectful of your tenants. Contact me for advice on how to do this the correct, respectful, and legal way. While it's totally possible to sell properties even with tenants present, it adds complication to getting showing permissions, and there's the additional factor, once it's sold, of ensuring vacant possession by completion day. Much better to sell a vacant property than one that's tenanted, especially during this market. When buyer agents can easily book your property to do showings via auto-confirm, you'll maximize the number of showings. The more showings you have, the higher the chance you'll get an offer. It's that simple. Second strategy. Cleanliness of the property. I can't emphasize how important this is. I had a house listing in the suburbs this past summer. The house was modern and its structure, HVAC, and appliances were all in good shape. It was recently built as well. However, the house was occupied by the seller and the property was, to put it bluntly, not clean. I did multiple showings early on for potential clients who didn't have an agent, and they would almost always say, quote, "House is great, but I wouldn't move in here. It's just not clean," unquote. This was after I assured them that I would get it professionally cleaned after the owner had moved out. Despite multiple times of providing feedback to the owner-seller, they didn't get it anywhere near an acceptable level of hygiene, and the listing died. I blame myself for not getting through to my seller. I should have been much more clear about that. Having a clean property is a very basic action. Don't let something that simple ruin your chances of getting a buyer. Make sure your property's clean. Next strategy. Commission a home inspection for a freehold or have the status certificate ready if you're selling a condo. When selling condos, have a copy of the status certificate purchased and ready. In the current market, many condos take more than 30 days to sell, by which time a certificate is considered old and a buyer's lawyer would want a new one. But the cost to reorder is minimal, and having the information about your unit from a certificate up front, the physical, legal, and financial aspects of your unit in the building, can answer many questions from the potential buyer up front. For freehold, a third-party independent home inspection report from a recognized company like Pillar to Post, Carson Dunlop, or Housemaster is wise to provide up front. It discloses many aspects of the house's current condition and again answers many questions a potential buyer might have about your listing before they make an offer. Providing a home inspection up front doesn't necessarily guarantee a buyer dropping a home inspection condition in their offer, but in my experience, it does reduce that chance. Another factor is that sellers who have home inspection reports available are seen as being upfront and honest. It sets the buyer's minds at ease when a report is available for analysis. staging or clean and empty. In most cases, I believe that staging does indeed help sell a property a bit faster and perhaps a bit more money. There's nothing like a staged house or condo to really show buyers the potential of a property. I found that many buyers can't pre-visualize how furniture and decoration can fit in and enhance a space. By staging, it makes it very clear and obvious when buyers are walking through the property on a showing with their agents. When a property's potential is shown to them rather than just being described to them, it's a visceral experience for the better. In a few instances, the other option is to show a property clean and empty. I would and have opted for this approach if the property needs a lot of renovation or requires updating, very unfashionable decorations or appliances. Having staged furniture in a property that obviously needs heavy renovation or updating is odd looking and contradictory. So in those cases, it's better just to show the property completely empty and still as clean as possible. I've successfully sold my listings both ways. Professional level photos, virtual tours, floor plans, and video. Well over 95% of buyers do their search for a home on the internet, well before they hire an agent, let alone have that agent book a showing. Buyers are perusing listings. They're looking at photos, virtual tours, videos of properties, floor plans if they're provided. Needless to say, as a seller, you need an agent who will provide absolute top-notch still photos, virtual reality tours, videos, and those floor plans. For over 20 years before I was a real estate broker, I was a corporate advertising photographer. Due to my high-level skill sets in that type of advertising, plus how critical it is to market your property visually, I never hire a third-party contractor to do those photos, VR tours, or videos or floor plans. I always do it myself. That really sets me apart from almost every other realtor I know. Every piece of marketing is incredibly important when it comes to getting your listing sold. So I do that personally at a very, very professional level. Timing. Want to have the best chance of selling quickly and for the highest price? Then time your sale for either the spring or autumn. Why does this improve your chances for a faster sale at a higher price? Simple reason, there are more buyers out there during the spring and autumn. To be exact, spring season in the GTA actually begins in late winter. The market is already getting pretty busy. It's underway in early March, really in late February, which is still technically winter. And then it usually peaks in May or June, which is obviously well into spring. Autumn peak starts after Labor Day in September. So again, technically it's actually starting late summer because autumn doesn't really start until September 20th or 21st, depending on the year. It will stay busy to the end of October. If you're lucky, maybe middle of November. Months to avoid listing if you can: August and December. Buyer activity is very low during those months. Reason, many buyers are on vacation in August. And of course, the holiday season is in full swing during December. And I would also say at least the first 2 or 3 weeks of January as well tends to be very, very slow. With that said, if you need to sell at a specific time that's not one of those peaks, go ahead and do so. The difference in speed to sale is likely only a few days if it's an offer anytime scenario. Sale price likely won't be drastically less during the non-peak period. The market dictates value, and just because you're selling in non-peak times doesn't mean the price is going to be dramatically less. Let me give you a personal example of selling during a non-peak period. I ended up selling my house late November last year, which is not nominally ideal. The reason, I couldn't move into my new condo until early November. I only wanted to move once and not overcomplicate logistics. And since the new condo was also pre-construction, I didn't have to pay for the new condo until middle of January when title registers to me, although I was paying an occupancy fee during the 2 months until then. So I had 2 months between moving out and having to pay for the new home. I also wanted my house to be completely empty so that my contractors could do final minor repairs, have the walls repainted, and of course get the house professionally cleaned and staged. I moved out on November 15th, and by the next day, the minor contracting work was being done. 2 days later, the cleaners completely scrubbed the house from top to bottom. 4th day, the staging was done. I did all the photography, virtual reality, and videos on day 5, and 6 days later, we were on MLS. That's how quickly I work, not just on my own listing, but everybody else's listing. Less than a week, it's ready to go, especially once a house is empty. Late November, as I said, wasn't ideal when it comes to having a lot of buyers out there and looking. Most people in the GTA are emotionally tuned into the upcoming holidays in December. But we did all of the other factors right. We moved out of the house to make showings easy. We had a professional home inspection done. We had the house immaculately clean. As the house was in great shape, it was worthwhile staging. I created professional level advertising work about it. And as we were in a desirable neighborhood on a quiet street with a house in good shape, we went with the offer date strategy despite the market being slow. End result, 8 days later, after we listed on offer date, we got multiple offers and sold over asking at a price point we were happy with. If you do need to sell during the non-peak periods, do everything else right and you'll still get a good result. The pricing. It's important that you, as a seller, pay attention to what the market and your realtor are telling you about market value. Overpricing is one of the main reasons for a listing not to sell in any market, not just in this one. If you don't have realistic expectations for price, your listing will go nowhere and not get sold. Even worse, as it sits on the market for 90, 100 days or more, it becomes a stale listing, as buyer agents call it. Potential buyers will start to wonder what's wrong with the listing, and there's a general tendency to avoid it, which further delays a potential sale. I would advise you to speak to your realtor or hire me about recently sold comparables. Homes that are as similar to yours within the same community and preferably sold no further back in time than 90 days ago. Those are legitimate comparables. As your realtor, I would then do a comparative market analysis, which, by the way, is not the same thing as merely going with an average. The analysis is much more complex and detailed than that. Get you a range of your home's current value. From my CMA, I would then recommend price at the high range of what I've discovered, and then allow offers to come in any time. Expect a potential buyer to typically come in below the asking price if they come in by themselves. That is, if there's not a competing buyer at the same moment. And from there, we negotiate that buyer upwards in price. That's what I would mostly recommend in this rather slow market with a lot of inventory where it's favoring the buyer. With that said, with sales higher year over year, there have been certain areas and houses in the GTA that have gone back to the underpriced offer date strategy. It does work sometimes, and we are seeing a little bit of evidence again of bidding wars for certain communities and certain properties. That's a detailed view of my advice to sellers in the Greater Toronto Area in today's market of autumn 2025. I hope that's been useful to you. If you'd like a copy of the strategy summary or have any questions at all, give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email, and I'd be happy to help you. See you next week.